Hello everyone, we're here for another episode of Gaming with the Cooler. I'm Owen, the Cooler, and here we are to have another episode. So basically here at Chilling with the Cooler, which is what the show actually is, not Gaming with the Cooler, I go over the comments over the past week of anything that people have mentioned in other videos that went up since the last time we had Chilling with the Cooler, including any comments that were posted on that last live show that people had to post after the show was already finished. And so, basically, we've got quite a few to go through because a lot of people left comments on the Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report that went up. There was one between myself and my friend Jacob, and we played Warriors of Chaos up against the Dark Elves. They were both my armies. I was playing the Dark Elves, and he was playing the Warriors of Chaos. There was a few rules mistakes, but I had expected there to be a few because it has been quite a while since I played some Warhammer 40k, or Fantasy rather, or both really. I don't really play either of them anymore. But that said, I do want to start playing them more, and so be prepared to see a lot more Warhammer Fantasy and 40k in the future. So, might as well just get right into this. Those of you who are watching live, how are y'all doing? I'm glad you guys showed up to watch the show. Leave comments in the side right now, and I'm going to be going over all the questions in the older videos, and then I'll come back and get these ones before the end of the show, because I can't imagine it's going to take me a full hour to answer all the comments that come up here. So let's start off. We're gonna go with we'll start at the last live show, and it looks like we've got a few. Thank you for the War Machine and 40k advice, says Flaming 3000, and no problem. It's what I'm here to try and do. Mick, thinking real hard on getting into a new game. War Machine is leading the pack, but please show some miniatures. I'm trying to get an idea for the flavor of the factions, i.e., Cater is Russian. I need to look at the figs to help find one to excite the imagination of the painter in me. My painting skills are uncluttered by talent, but fired by LeBlat Blue. Thanks in advance for your help. Alright, so you basically just want to see a number of the models. I unfortunately only really have Scorn and Menoth and a few trolls, so I can't really show you a lot of all the factions. I can show you pretty much every model in the Menoth faction. And they're basically just, how to describe this? They're a church. They're the long flowing robes and the big crosses, and they're called menifixes, but they're crosses. Like we all accept that that's a big cross. And they've got like robes, and they use a lot of fire, and they've got lots of like flails, and have like a semblance to an incense burner. So that's basically what Menoth is. And then the other ones you can Google, or I'll try and see if I can scrounge up pictures for them in the future. So, that mention made my day after work. Shame I had to watch this in post. No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Be glad that you can work? I don't know what I'm going with that one. No problem watching them in post, in my opinion. Omni Lord Swag. Hey Owen, I was wondering your opinion on mounting Dark Elf Dreadlords were. I've been looking at the Manticore and it's slowly winning me over. Well, the problem with mounting a guy on a monstrous beast is that you turn into cannon bait. Like, you'll get shot by cannons or cannon-like things all the time. And it's basically 1 in 3 you hit your Dreadlord or the other guy or your mount. Now, either of them are pretty much going to get pasted by this cannon, and there's no real way to protect yourself because cannons can just swivel and turn and face whatever direction they need to be. And the other problem is that they have a lot of trouble trying to front on hit a unit because you have to just you're losing by 4 before the fight even starts. So you need to do at least 4 wounds. No, you have to do 5 wounds because they have a musician and you do not, and not take a wound. So if you think that your Dreadlord and a Manticore cannot do 5 wounds to a unit, don't attack it because you'll lose, and you're going to be rolling on leadership checks and bad news bears. Never mind the fact that you might get wounded. So the Manticore is really good. I personally, if I'm going to mount my Dreadlord, I'm going to put him on like a dark horse, like one of the cav, like the horses, or one of the cold ones, or on a chariot. Chariots run into the same problem as the monsters, but at least then they don't target you separately, so your character's abilities can protect you, like if you have a good ward save and stuff like that, and they won't just dismount you. Or on a cold one or a dark rider horse, because they can then join cold ones and dark riders and stuff like that, to give them that little extra hitting power that a Dreadlord can bring to the combat, which, spoiler alert, is a lot of hitting power. The Slayer reincarnated. Hey, you need to do some Bretonnian tactics. That'd be nice. Give 40k another go. Well, probably give 40k another go. And I would certainly like to give out some Bretonnian tactics, but unfortunately I don't really have a Bretonnian army. So I can kind of like explain how it works, but it's hard to do that without actually having models to like show you what's the plan. One easy tip I can give you though, keep this in mind when you're building your units and when you're thinking about selecting characters. You, as a Bretonnian player, unlike the rest of the factions, your characters push your command backwards. And so, let's say you brought 2 paladins and a general in a unit of knights that were in their 3 wide or 3 back lance formation. The 3 characters can sit at the front of the unit. And if you have those 3 guys decked out with good armor saves or good ward saves or both, your unit cannot be attacked by the unit that you're attacking. They have to divide all their attacks against those 3 guys because no one's in base to base with your unit, but your unit can still attack thanks to the lance formation as well as just the second rank getting to attack. Never mind the fact that you've got 3 champions. And usually, what's even better is if you take one of those guys and give him gauntlets of the duel so that he can challenge and they cannot back down. It basically cuts out like 6 models from their unit that would be allowed to attack that guy. So there's a very easy tactic. It's kind of points heavy because you end up putting a lot of characters in one unit, but it's cheesy and effective. Bradley, Owen, 40k isn't bad, but you need to lay off on the idea of making a game-breaking army. If you're out to play tournaments and play leagues and you're going to play to win by stacking cheese and goofy gimmicks, then no. Don't come back to 40k. It won't be worth it, and you'll find yourself wishing for the hour or so match was back in your life. Oh, wishing for your hour back. Got it. 40k has become a much more casual game, and I feel that GW is intentionally trying to kill off the tournament scene in order to kill off the tournament players who go around seal clubbing 40k with Eldar Death Stars and Zeech magic bullshit. The ridiculous other builds. If you want to play with winning being the most important part of the game, save your time and effort. You're wasting your time, Broseph. Also, what do you think of the Lord Inquisitor trailer in the event that you care and or have seen it? Well, I did post it on the Facebook page, so I have seen it and I have been following them forever, but they're just neat little videos now. I don't imagine that they'll ever be a movie, so that's not something I would think about. Okay, I've explained this before on live shows, but I'll go into it a little bit here to try and explain what my views are of the tournament scene in gaming. And this is gaming. This isn't even just like tabletop gaming. This is just gaming. If your game is not competitive, it may work as a pretzel game to like sit around and play, but fundamentally unbalanced games, which you're implying and agreeing that that's the case, that there are Death Stars and Zeech magic lanes and stuff that is just so much better than other factions can bring to bear, you're wasting your time playing it because you can never improve because you already know what you need to do to improve. So you're purposely hamstringing yourself so that you can try and play with someone else who's doing their best with their faction. And so, like, how is that fun? How is it fun to, you know what? I'm not going to bring any tanks this game so that our armies are equal to you. And then when you lose, you go, ah, should have brought those tanks and I would have won this game. And then when you win, you go, well, I guess my army really is that overpowered. I mean, if you want to just put models down and pick them up again after rolling dice, you don't need to play any of these games. Just like get some Lego and put it on the table, roll a couple dice, and then pick up which Lego you don't like. And then there you go. It's as balanced as you need it to be. But I mean, if you want to play a game that has like rules that are upkept and you're going to invest a lot of money and time into, play a game that has like skill levels of improvement. Because other than that, you are wasting your time. And I don't, like, this is the thing that Lionel from X Planet Games, one of the local game shops here, had tried to pitch to me, is that 40k is not as bad as it was, that it's gotten better. Now, I agree that GW is intentionally trying to kill off the tournament scene, because they're idiots, And they don't seem to understand that you need that section of hardcore players that go to the gaming clubs and play your game all the time, so people can see that they're playing that game, so that people who are wanting to get into the game can look into it and be, look, there's guys every Wednesday night down at the place playing that game. I'll have someone to go play with. But when one guy shows up or two guys show up and they play a casual beer and pretzels game and they don't usually show up and they don't come in all the time, nobody's going to see your game other than what they see on the internet. And like, I didn't get sold on tabletop gaming by videos on the internet. I got sold on it by knowing people and being involved in it. So that's why I think the tournament scene is important, and that having a well-balanced and competitive game is important, because they breathe life into your own game. Maybe people don't agree, but I don't give a shit. Big Bull Bates, really enjoy your videos. Thank you. Flaming 3000, play whatever you want to play. I find that being forced to play something is not fun for any party. That's for the most part true. Playing things for too long also can kill it. Big Bull Bates, would you ever use Archaon the Ever-Chosen in a Warrior of Chaos army? And if so, what would the preferred size army be to bring him points-wise? I'd probably not bring him, but I've argued that characters are all crappier than non-characters in fantasy. But if I wanted to bring him, I would like to bring him, that said, because it is fun to bring the characters, and in a response to Bradley there, playing in a more fun game with characters is totally an option you can do. I would not bring him under 3,000 points. He's too expensive, and you still need to bring your wizards and your other gear and your other BSBs and your other stuff. And he's such a huge point cost. But at least if you have so much more stuff, you can mitigate his target priority. Clint, have you had any luck against Butcher3? What strategies do you suggest against that monster? I played Scorn recently and got properly schooled. Cooler, please help. Well, I've played against Butcher3 probably 8 or 9 times, and I've yet to lose to Butcher3. I've played him while I play my Menoth. I've never played him with other than Menoth, and honestly, I think it's more that Butcher3 is just a bad matchup against Menoth, as we have so many things that are just a big screw you to what he can do. So, first and foremost, if you play Menoth, bring the book. The Covenant of Menoth totally ruins Butcher's day. You say, you can't cast spells. No Flashing Blade, no Impending Doom, no Energizer. Big deal. And if he wants to kill that book, he's got to attack it 5 times. So he's got to buy or get 1, then buy 4 before he can start doing his abilities after that point. Now, of course, you're going to have other things to protect the book. Like Harvey Book is just a big screw you to Butcher3, because 1, he goes down to mat 7. When he's nearby, and yes, mat 7 is a good mat, but it does mean that he's actually going to start missing things that are def 12 and 14. He might actually have to boost to hit you, and so that's one good thing. And the other good one is that you can mitigate what he can kill with Martyrdom, namely you can stop the book from dying. If you're playing as Scorn, it sounds like you're playing Scorn, it's very hard to kill him. What I would recommend is accept that you're going to lose a lot of stuff, and basically put your army in such a way that he has no choice but to go in and attack it. Like, lose 2 bronze backs to this guy on his feet turn, but have something to follow up and kill him with. Like, make it such a good bait that he'd be willing to risk his caster to kill it, because it'll basically, you'll lose or you'll win. Like, you've got to gamble that one. Other casters may have other options against it, but Butcher3 is really hard to assassinate. War Dog, Focus Camp, high stats. It's pretty hard to kill him just out and out. But I think Scorn can do it with a few of their things there, but I can't list off the top of my head what those would be, other than apply bronze back and win. So make a risk it. Risk the game, and you might beat him that way, or play Menoth. And I can mostly say what Menoth can do, because, you know, that's the faction I play. Back to the next video. This was the Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report, 2250 points. And from the first, J.A. Rat, don't know how I mixed that up. It amazes me how they are making fantasy more and more complicated. Things have changed a lot since 5th edition. On a side note, Can you even cast buffs on a unit with Mark of Khorne or with Khorne's hatred of magic? Yep. He goes in a long talk about how you can't have guys mixing anymore, or back in the day you couldn't have people who had certain marks and go with other marks, and that's not really a thing anymore. Taking a look here, Fearly, I don't know. He had commented that there were a lot of rule errors, but to keep them coming, and that they simplified this edition. Basically, Yashu filled in with that because I asked what rules mistakes that there were, because I want to make sure we get these right in the future. Battle Standard cannot be your general. That's true. Trolls have 3 attacks in the 2nd rank. Monstrous infantry, they will get their full attacks up to 3 if they're supporting, so the 2nd rank. Or 3rd rank if you have a horde. His chaos characters have to challenge, and that's true in the chaos book. And you also could have told him to dispel your Throne of Vines. Yeah, I kind of mentioned that he could do it. I didn't expressly state how important it would be for him to do it. But we talked after the game that dispelling Throne of Vines would be a major thing that he's going to want to do. And, yeah, that's all good things to bring up. Allie, more fantasy, please. More fantasy's coming. Daniel Grimmin, I think trolls have a 4-up regen. They do. For some reason, I was mixing up 6th edition 40k and their Feel No Pain, because Feel No Pain is 5-up in 6th edition. But I double-checked it in the rulebook for fantasy, and they do, in fact, have a regen of 4+. Henrik, I know that the purpose is to teach the game to your opponent, but as a viewer who is also trying to understand the game, the quick cuts make me feel like I have to be an expert to understand what's going on. It feels like as soon as an action is made, the video immediately goes to something else, while I'm trying to understand what the result of the previous action is. I know you can't please anyone, but I think less aggressive editing would suit these battle reports much better, even if they end up 5 to 10 minutes longer. Alright, I could definitely slow that down. It's actually a filming change to make them longer, to really see the difference, because it is very click, 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 as you film it to get those shorter cuts, basically to keep them under reasonable times. Like this video right now, even with the aggressive editing, is 50 minutes long. Like that's a long video. That's an hour of sitting there and watching this thing go down. But I can certainly make sure I try and adjust the way the videos are made in order to help learn how to play it watching it better, so you have a better understanding of what's going on. The Shadow Goat, I think you rallied before you declared charges, so the Cold One Knights could have used the General's leadership. I believe that you rally in the remaining moves phase. Let me try and bring up my rulebook here, because I have the digital version from the website. And removing casualties, taking save throws. This is the shooting. Movement? Nope. Magic. I could just search, but I'm not going to search. You know what? This is going to be under move your units. Moving backward. It's going to be under morale, isn't it? Like rallying. Special rules. Direction of flight. Here we go. Panic. Heavy casualties. Direction of flight. Fed through. No, it's not there either. I think it's in remaining moves. If someone can find that in the rulebook, that would be awesome, and then I can know for sure. And he also comments that, and the Hydra should have died because the Lore of Life attribute can only heal characters. That is not true, as I pull out my Lore of Magic spell card here. The Lore of Life. Life Bloom. When a spell from the Lore of Life is successfully cast, the wizard or another friendly model within 12 inches instantly recovers a single wound lost earlier in the battle. So it's any models, including the wizard, can heal 1. So it is including the Hydra. It's very, very, very useful lore attribute if you're using monstrous infantry or monsters. The Shadow Goat. Swift Stride does not affect Overrun, I believe. The special rule just says charge, flee, and pursuit. What is pursuit if not chasing down the enemy? Let me see if I can try and find... There we go. Units on the winning side are each only permitted to make a single... are permitted to pursue a single enemy unit that they have had base contact. So basically, when you overrun, it's not overrunning, it's pursuing. It's literally when you look at multiple combats and pursuit, it happens after you win. bear in mind you pursue the enemy, you pursue them. And so if you go to Swift Stride, it says you can use it during charging, fleeing, and pursuing. And pursuing is what you do when you're overrunning. Bam. Rulebooks. They're good. And I will one day read it. Alright, we're nearly done. We've got one more video here. This was the Sins of a Solar Empire gaming episode from last week. And we've got a couple comments here. To Flame, are you going to play Eternal Crusade now that they're saying it is like PlanetSide 2 when it comes out? And we could be an orc so people can join for free. Yeah, I was really amused by that in the... if you haven't looked into the Warhammer Online, I posted a link to it on the Facebook page, and there's a link to that down below in the description right now, so you can like the Facebook page and see the updates that I post. Basically, it's going to be like a third-party or third-person shooter game with like close combat and stuff in an open-world environment. And you can pay to play it. It's $40 a one-time purchase, in theory. I think that's what the number was. And you'll get access to all 5 races. You'll get Chaos, Space Marines, Eldar, Orcs, and Tyranids. Or you can play it for free, and you can only play as an Orc player, and you level up slowly, like you'll unlock gear slower. So that's kind of hilarious. Their reasoning being that if you invest in the game, you'll be more willing to spend time and pay attention and work together to try and win. Whereas free-to-play players, there's going to be more of them, and they're just going to run all over the place and do whatever they want because they're not going to know what they're doing and not going to work together very well. Sort of like orcs. So yeah, I'll probably try and play it out. Szn, S-Z-N. Hi Owen, I have a question about Warhammer Fantasy. What's the difference between Bretonnia and the Empire? I can't decide which to get into. Like them both. Is the truth to the rumors that GW is going to can Bretonnias? Probably not going to GW ban anything. Like, there's always rumors that GW is going to get rid of something, and they never do because they make money off of all of these things. And there's also a number of Finecast models that they had made for Bretonnians, so I don't think it's likely that you're actually going to get those banned. The big difference between Bretonnia and Empire is that Bretonnia is primarily a combat army. They've got all these knights in shining armor. They're very like stereotypical not Renaissance, but medieval knights with the big pennons and the peasants that fight with them. And they go in there on these heroic crusades and charges. And the Empire is more like the gun line units work with big blocks of infantry in formations that can benefit one another. Oh, there's a lot of these. Matthew, sorry I couldn't play this week, had stuff to do, but would recommend Pandora First Contact for next week. Possibly. Flynn, thanks for taking carriers to the logical or illogical, I can't decide. Extreme lot of fun to watch. As Lau pointed out, it is annoying to deal with. Though what may have been exemplified as well is things can get bad when the enemy is within striking distance of you when you rely on carriers. Wish I could play, but unfortunately your timing isn't conducive for me, or conducive rather. Keep up the good fight. He's referring to in the game, I spammed carriers to try and kill everyone. And it worked for the most part until Lau and his 2 teammates were able to finish me off. Nick, watch this live and then again in the same night. Not sure what to say about me. Good background for working on stuff though. That's insanity. This video was like 3 hours long. Ugh. And then Omnilord votes for Dawn of War, Sins, or PlanetSide for next week. So remember, if any of you want to watch or join in with Gaming the Cooler, leave a comment on the Gaming with the Cooler video, and whatever one has the most thumbs up is the game that we're going to play. And so that's how we do. And there we go. We are now into the comments from today's current video. Whole bunch of hellos. I would like some chocolate chip cookies as well. And Privateer Press homepage has a nice gallery. They certainly do. I have not tried out 7th edition of 40K yet. No lag, some lag. There were lag problems. I have no problems. Just today for some reason. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. That's what 40K was when I first started. Designed to be competitive. Now it's a joke. Yup. Menoth is a bad matchup for Butcher3. I agree. Khador should be dropping P Vlad or maybe one of the Sorshas depending on how they're built. Yeah, P Vlad, E Vlad, Sorsha, Old Witch, yeah, either of the Sorshas. Like, those are what I would drop against Menoth. You do not want to drop Butcher. Any of the Butchers, really. Earbrush Wargaming. So I hear a lot about War Machine / Hordes, but when I try to look into the bat reps, I find it almost impossible to follow because of all the abbreviations. Okay, you have to explain what abbreviations you're referring to, like the spell abbreviations, or... I actually can't think of any other ones, like charging. They don't do that. Harby is like Harbinger. Gaspy is Asphyxious. So, let me know what you mean. I'll try and answer that. Ned Mex21. Yay, more explosions. I think you need local lowlifes who would run out of fireworks at some point. I have no idea what you're talking about. War Machine Wednesday. Different marks cannot join units with different marks, but you can cast on whatever. I believe the marks section at the beginning. Okay, fair enough. I didn't do it, but that makes sense. Ace, starting War Machine with a 25-point list, looking for advice on what to add or change to reach 50 points. War Machine list, 25 points, Khador battle group with Warcaster, Sorsha, Destroyer, Juggernaut, Widowmakers, Winter Guard, unit, and officer. Alright, stuff you're going to want to add. Beast 09 is a good inclusion if you're playing P Sorsha. E Sorsha you want to pick up, actually. She's awesome. But, other than that, Winter Guard, Death Star, you're going to want Kovnik Joe, he's really good. You may want to bring Kayazi Assassins. They're good, they're bad. I like the Kayazi, the pair of them, the two of them that have Gang and Duelist. There's just two of them. They're Merc / Khador models. You can use them in both, and they're really good. And yeah, that's basically what you're going to want to add for the get-go. Iron Fangs, either Black Dragons or just the regular Iron Fang Pikemen. They're good inclusions as well. Who else do you see all the time? Alexia and the Risen. Always fun to add because Alexia is an amazing unit. So that's what I would recommend. Miso. For Scorn, you need Tiberian and Orin Midwinter, as Tiberian cannot be moved. Therefore, when a Butcher tries to do Impending Doom, Tiberian's just like, that's cute. Never mind that Tiberian is also pretty beefy. And then Orin Midwinter is the same as the book in that you can make it so people can't cast spells within 12 inches of him. So that's certainly a good buff as well. And I don't know what Zal does, but P. Morgul would definitely be able to throw down an assassination on Butcher simply because of high mat and anatomical, and lots of attacks. Chain Attack's website has a list of common jargon and abbreviations. Well, there you go. That's one place you can look. I'm celebrating hearing locals celebrating the World Cup. Oh, alright. Earbrush Wargaming. Yeah, you were on the right track there. Mainly the names of the characters and what they do, with the P and the E in the name. The P and the E is because many of the characters, like the casters in War Machine, have a Prime version and an Epic version. So it's P Sorsha or E Sorsha, being Prime or Epic. And basically what they are is, as the game progressed, their storylines continued, and they got a new set of abilities. So they got new spells and a new feat, and some of them got a different stat line. And basically what they are is just a different version of the caster. There's not really a better or worse when it comes to Epic and Prime. They're simply different. They do different jobs for the faction. Some of them, a lot of people do tend to lean towards the Epics. I'm not sure if they actually are better. But like Pete Krios is one of the top played casters in Menoth. But he has two more Epic versions. He's got Epic Krios, #2, and then he's got Intercessor Krios, which is the third version of him. And so those are the next steps up from there. I can't even try and get into what every caster can do. There's like 150 of them or something crazy like that. But if you go onto Battle College, it's a website, they've got a list of basically every model and the basics of what they do, and you can see the differences between Primes and Epics in their abilities, and then a description of each of them. Now, of course, there's short forms of people's names, like Gristle and... well, actually, that's not a short form, but like Harby is Harbinger, Gaspy is Asphyxious, E. Gaspy is Epic Asphyxious. That wasn't fair, apparent. I think those are really the only ones that have very obvious and well-known abbreviations. So that's basically how that goes. Other than that, yeah, I can't really think of other just common abbreviations that would come up. But yeah, take a look on the Battle College website. They've got a long list of all kinds of stuff that you would want to know if you're looking to get into War Machine. And they've got a lot of pictures. Hello, Tobal. How are you today? Because I'm quite tired. Yesterday, we had our Canadian versus American tournament down at the Toy Trove in St. Catharines here. And the Americans ended up winning it. They had more wins, but a Canadian did win the overall. We had the best Canadian won, being the only undefeated player. It wasn't me. But unfortunately, the Americans had more overall wins between all of their players. So that was a downer. I'm going to personally blame myself, having lost 2 of my games out of the 4. So yeah, it was certainly fun. I ended up playing P. Sevi with Double Judicator and Thyra as my 2 Warcasters. So to be fair, I did not bring exactly the most competitive things, but I was talking about it the other night because we all had a barbecue afterwards where everybody who was at the tournament all came back to one of the locals' houses here, and we all hung out and chatted and ate burgers and beers and whatnot until late at night. I think I didn't get home until like 2:30, but anyway, it was certainly a good time. Everybody is a good player in our local meta. There's not really anybody who's a douchebag or one of those dick players, except for maybe me. I'm kind of the worst. I have to just troll Rich as often as I can. Rich is one of the guys from Beer Machine. They have a podcast that we'll probably end up talking about this in the future. But if you don't have them, they're on Facebook. Just search Beer Machine, or if you have, once again, Game with the Cooler on there, you'll be able to find it because I post a lot of stuff whenever they do live shows and whenever they do their podcasts. I post them on there as well because I want to help them out because they do a good show. But yeah, we had a good game though. He and I. We played the first round. It was P. Sevi, so Prime Sevi, and Sevi being Severius. There's a short version. And his Double Judicators with Errants up against Raven. She had full Mage Hunter Strike Force and full Mage Hunter Assassins, the melee version. And then also had a unit of the Rifleman and a Hyperion. And it was a good game at the beginning. The dice betrayed him a little bit when he tried to go in and kill one of my Judicators with the Hyperion and failed to kill it. Then the 2 Judicators teamed up on the Hyperion and just wrecked it without much trouble. And at that point, the AoEs had just been obliterating his army because POW 10 blast damage 12 times makes it that he basically could not live. Like, oh, you have stealth. Alright, whatever. If I miss, you just die. All I have to do is touch your model, and I don't even have to roll dice, and we just take them off the board. But it was fun, and to give you an idea of how much of a good sport he is, we played that game, and I tabled him to a man, and all he killed were my errants. And he still went on to have a good day. So, there you go. Good example of good sportsmanship right there. Just got into Trolls, says Ryan here. What would you say are the top Warlocks for them, in your opinion? Horlock, Doomshaper, and Madrak. Calandra is very good as well, and Gristle is very good. Epic Gristle preferably, but P. Gristle has a lot of good game to her as well. So, those are my opinions of them right there, because I've played Trolls 50 million bazillion times. Also get Burrowers, who are obnoxious as hell, and Mulg. Those are basically 2 1-2s that are going to make your army really good. Warders are also amazing. Tobal 351. Do you think 7th edition was implemented to curb the power of the Cyclist shooting factions like Tau or Necron? It seems like the same thing was done with Fantasy Chaos Demon 7th edition and Fish of Fury. 7th edition was implemented because they could. 6th edition was losing sales, I'm willing to bet. I don't see their sales. But 6th edition was a gigantic disaster. There were factions that were so ridiculously overpowered compared to the other factions that it was almost unplayable to go up against these guys in a tournament scene. When you go to Adepticon, one of the big 40k tournament scenes left in North America, and there's 150 to 250 players at least in these tournaments, and everyone is playing Tau or Eldar, with maybe like the 10 people that were the exception that weren't, and in those armies are all the same models. It's Riptide, 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 Wraith Knight, Wraith Knight, Wraith Knight, Fire Warriors, Fire Warriors, Battlesuits, 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 or Jet Bike, Jet Bike, Jet Bike. Like, every list is the same. They're all the same factions. You know that there's a problem with your game. You know it's really unbalanced. And so they saw that, I'm sure, and went, holy crap, we've ruined our game right now. I know we keep saying that it's just for funsies, but like, you can't play a fun game against these two factions because they will just win unless you take a points hit to them, which makes points totally, absolutely useless. The idea of points is to balance for power, and if one army has to bring less points to balance, they're not balanced. That's exactly what that means. It means the point costs are wrong. So, like, to give you an idea of that, a lot of people have talked about how, like, oh, well, they would take a 500 points less so that the armies would be even, and they would be even, and they would be even at that point. Well, what that says to me is these idiots don't know how to balance points, because if that was what it took to make a balanced game, then these guys would each be like a little bit more expensive to make it balanced, or your guys would be a little bit cheaper to make it balanced, and yet they don't, and they don't even try and fix that. They just change the rules setting so that the abilities of these guys sort of modify kind of the balance. Like they hurt shooting a little bit, and they hurt this a little bit, and they weaken melee, like, because close combat used to be the king of the game. You would move into close combat and you would just win, with shooting being useful but not key. And then 6th edition made shooting key, and close combat was not so useful but very good sort of in the end game. And now they've tried to balance it backwards again, or so I've been told. I haven't played it, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't care for 40k. I don't care for GW is my problem. I like the idea of 40k. I like fantasy. I just thoroughly enjoy fantasy, but I just hate GW. They do such a bad job at trying to market and use their games that it's like I can't understand it. Like it's like Nintendo when they started cracking down on Let's Plays on YouTube. So a lot of companies, or not companies, but game developers now for video games, I'm switching a little bit, have started really pushing towards video reviews and Let's Plays with people who have a large following on the internet, because those people will push sales for their game. Like, let's say I'm one of the YouTube channels that has 2 million subscribers, and I play Outlast, which was really popular on a couple of those channels because it was a scary game. That's potentially, like, those videos get like 5 million views over the course of a month, and that's 5 million people. Even if 5%, like 10% of those people, even if 1% of those people bought that game, it's like 5,000 more sales. And it cost the company nothing. All they said was, yeah, go play our video game on the internet. And then Nintendo tries to crack down on them. Why? What possible benefit does this have to you, other than that it hides what your game is from the general population? Other than what you're willing to show them exactly. And it just seems silly to me. And GW does the same thing. They don't, like, their video games, for example, are very stupid. Like, I like some of them, but GW just does not seem to want to support them in any logical way. So, I don't know. It's meh. I'm gonna move on from there. Miso. Trolls have good casters, but the best is Doom's Shapers Runes of War Tier 4 with units of Rune Shapers. Incredibly tough. Yeah? What about E. Gristle's Meat Mountain? That's an incredibly tough and obnoxious army. It's basically like Warders, Mulg, Earthborn, Janissa, Stones, and you sit in this big clump of ridiculously high armor with inhospitable ground, so your opponent can't even really get at you, and you just switch to, what's it called, dash, and just go and kill your opponent. But whatever, fine. Ryan, I personally went for the champions opposed to warders as I preferred 2 attacks. I've already got Mulg and P Doom Shaper and E Madrak on the way. Champions are good, but they're not as durable and they're not as able to engage as the warders are. Warders having reach is a gigantic big deal, and warders getting plus strength and armor when they get damaged, or at least armor. Maybe it's speed and armor. Anyway, they get a bonus is a big deal as well, because high armored trolls, like they're looking in the armors in the 20s when they've got the stone and they've been hurt. Like, that's really good. Never mind the fact that you can put things on them to make them even more obnoxiously durable, like the call that basically gives them all concealment, or the call that if they get killed, your opponent gets knocked down, though that's arguably better on whelps. Or sorry, not whelps, burrowers, pigs. But I got Mulg and P Doom Shaper and E Mordrak are on the way. No, it's Madrak, I think. Maybe it's Mordrak. I don't know. Yeah, E Madrak is obnoxious. He loves pigs, or burrowers. The list that I lost to when I was at the Southern Ontario Open was E Madrak, double warders, stones, a couple different callers, Pyre Troll, Slag Troll? No, Pyre Troll, Impaler, and burrowers. And the burrowers basically carried him through that game. He did make 8 out of 11 toughs, so that was a big shift in his favor. So also, that's another thing. We were talking about tough last night and how pretty much nobody likes it in our gaming meta, simply because like it's so unreliable. Like, as much as I hate tough because I fight against it and like I try and kill something and it just lives and there's nothing I can do about that, it sucks to be a troll player with tough because you're depending on it. Like, your guys cost extra for that tough. Like, they don't have quite as good a stat line because they're expected to make 1 in 3 tough rolls, and then you don't, and all of a sudden your army's just folding because you can't make these stupid 5-up toughs, or you just dominate your opponent, and it's literally not because you did good, it's just because you were able to roll the 5-up tough. You didn't outplay them, you didn't have a good tactic, they outplayed you, they went for the assassination and it was totally successful, but you happened to make 6 tough rolls in a row. Then your caster got up and you won the game because of it. Not because you had any reason to win that game. You failed to win, but you toughed. And then some people will be like, oh, well, that's just something that's in the game. Yeah, but that's stupid. In a game that is totally built around odds and statistics and chance and mitigating risk, and then they have one thing in there that just like, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, the Meat Mountain sucks. Yeah, the Meat Mountain sucks. You know what beats the Meat Mountain? 70 double adjudicators. It does. I played it. I did it. You basically just kill Mulg because you can just shoot him to death with the rockets because you have such high mat, or such high rat with eye and battle and aiming. And after, like, because you can shoot him and he hyper aggressives towards you, or can. And if he does, you charge him with the other Judicator. If he doesn't, you just keep shooting him, and then the Judicator goes in and kills him. And the Earthborn will not kill the Judicator because their POW fists are like 3, so the thing's only hitting him at like POW 15, maybe 14. And yeah, bad news for the trolls. And warders do not kill Judicators. Warders can do a bunch of damage, and they might get lucky and do like a crippling hit. But the Judicator, so long as it lives with even 1 box left, will turn back and just kill them. Because Battle and I make them Mat 9, POW 23. That's just dead, 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 dead. Or Sweep, dead, 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 dead. Yeah. Mad, do you know a competitive tabletop where you use more models than a skirmisher, so 40 plus, which is located in a fantasy/sci-fi setting? Do I know a game that uses a lot of models, is competitive, and plays in a fantasy sci-fi setting? Not that I can say is actually competitive, because I don't know enough about them. So I'm going to go with no tentatively because I don't know. It's entirely possible that they exist. I can think of a few games like Kings of War exists. I don't know how competitive it is, but it does use larger numbers of models. Wrath of Kings is on its way, but it's kind of a skirmisher actually, so never mind. I don't recall how many models are used in a Drop Zone Commander game because I really want to freaking play Drop Zone Commander, but I haven't gotten to play it yet. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I like Warhammer Fantasy, and I find it is competitive to it in a sense. And this was a big thing that I had talked about the other night when we were all hanging out afterwards. One of the other guys there was a fantasy player, and I made my statement saying basically the reason I like fantasy more than War Machine in just a general sense, never mind like tons of models and the way the games play, it's that skill matters more than knowledge. You will not win a War Machine game if you do not know what your opponent does. You'll die. When Maul gets buffed 15 times and then kills your whole army, or when Malakaran comes flying across the board, or when you didn't kill that Seneschal last and he gets back up again and is now beside your caster, you lose. Fantasy, if we square off against each other and I see your units and like you've got some monsters and some arrows and stuff, but I know my army, I know how to maneuver my units, and I know how to position myself, and I know how to go after things, like I know to kill archers with this and monsters with that and fight with this, I can still win. It's true, knowing their army is a big advantage, like knowing what they're going to be capable of is a big deal. But I can still win based on my skill of maneuvering and controlling my forces and organizing them. That is not nearly as much the same as it is in War Machine, where while all of those things, like maneuvering and controlling and order of operations, are giantly big deals in War Machine, knowing your opponent is as big, if not bigger, than being able to play your faction. In fact, I would even argue that it is more ridiculous, like it's more important by far than your ability to play. You don't need to be a good player, but if you know every rule, you can make up for your inability to measure distances perfectly and all that simply by being able to mitigate every ability that they have, just through your knowledge that they have them. Miso. What's really disgusting is Boomhowler's 4-up tough. That's really dumb. It is. It is. But as Shizumaru says later on, the Merc pirate ship, which is basically the pirates, they can get 4-up toughs on lots of guys because it's like models within command ranges of certain characters that provide tough, and so you end up getting like tons of guys with 4-up toughs, and it's so obnoxious. But Damien, Tough's issue of unreliability is the same as We'll Be Back and Resurrection Protocols that, as a Necron player, I've always been irritated by. I'd rather have bring back abilities like the Ghost Arc. Yeah, it is the same. I agree. That, you know what, that is entirely true. That is exactly the same. That Necrons are point cost affected or cost affected based on the fact that they're expected to make reanimation protocols, and then sometimes you get them and sometimes you don't, and that makes your army either worthwhile or not. I've argued that it should be guarantees. Like I was saying last night, that you can't tough when you're knocked down if you're hit by a melee attack. Like melee attacks against a knockdown model loses tough. So they're always tough when you're trying to shoot at them, but when your knight like stabs him in the chest and he goes down, and then your knight happened to have a second attack, you basically climb on top of it and kill it. Like you finish, you make sure it's dead. Like you don't just like poke it again and it continues to heal. It makes sense even thematically, and not only that, it would provide you with an obvious solution to problems. Like you would know that it would take 2 attacks to kill every troll. Sometimes it'll be 1, but it's entirely possible that it'll take 2, and that's something you can plan for. And at range, it's less reliable because your range guys, they'll always get toughs against, but when they're knocked down, they're not in the way for what other range stuff can do. And so you end up with this double whammy of, yes, now it's weaker in melee, but it's still good at ranged, and you'll still get your toughs. But it was just an idea. The other one was if you hit something with double its boxes in damage, or the one critter who gets all of his boxes left. We were talking about instead of tough, simply when you kill one, they get all their boxes back one time. So if you were like a warrior and you died, you didn't get tough, you just healed for 8, and then that was the last attempt. You didn't get to heal again. And that was another thing, which would also be crazy powerful. But at least then, even with it being really powerful, it would still, you could work with that. Like you'd understand everything that you have to do. Tough is not removed by knockdown. This was me and the troll players and other players that were all at this tournament talking about it. I think I stated that right at the get-go. But yeah, the boomies are an issue because of the medium base, so they can't be trampled over, while the pirates are a small base and can be. You can stop trampling so easily, so easily. I don't even consider trampling when I get into a fight, simply because I maneuver my army in such a way that I will not get trampled towards. Yeah. Did you try out 40k 7th edition already, Owen? No, I have not tried it out yet. I haven't had a chance. Been busy with work and these videos and other tournament stuff. So no, I haven't had a chance to try out 7th. Because the other problem is I don't know anyone who plays 7th, so I basically have to go find someone to play 7th with. And I'm probably just going to go to a tournament one day and just be like, I don't know how to play. Somebody's going to have to stop me when I make a mistake. But, yeah, it was a proposed idea. Because that's the problem with tough. It's not that it makes them tougher, it's that it's not reliable. And that's really the issue that all of us on both the for tough and against tough side argue, is that it's too unreliable. Yeah, can't think of anything else that would, off the top of my head. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but I can't remember what other ideas came up for kind of mitigating the unreliability of tough. But it's one of those major detractors to War Machine for me, is that it has tough in it. The knowledge issue is a big deal. I like the unforgiving nature, in that, like, if you mess up and lose, like, you can lose the game. It's also very nice in that if you're falling behind, if your opponent is beating you, you can make a comeback. You just need to assassinate. Whereas 40k in fantasy, if you're getting obliterated, it's hard to make a comeback. It's very rare, in fact, that you'll actually be able to come back from that. Your opponent usually will just continue to shoot you, and it basically means that the most fun you'll have in the game was at deployment, was what a buddy of mine had mentioned the other night, because he plays fantasy as well now, or at least he's starting to. And we're going to actually play a battle report probably later this week, depending on his schedule. And he plays the Wood Elves, and I'm going to bring my Chaos, and we'll see how we do. In all likelihood, I'm going to lose, because the new Wood Elves are pretty awesome. But at the same time, Hell Cannons are amazing, and I might just obliterate his army with those. So we'll see. We'll see. But we're getting to the end of the show here. Does anyone have any last-minute questions, comments, stuff they want to have referred to? No? Nothing? No, nothing. I gotta wait. I know that there's that big delay. So, yeah. Other than that, what else have I got going on or coming up? We have I'm gonna be making a Warcaster. A friend of mine who's a local press ganger. Actually, no, he's not a press ganger anymore. He's a judge, one of the 20 judges in the world, apparently, for War Machine. Tim. And basically, well, I'm zoned out right there. I started reading a comment. Basically, he's making this game where he's making up a number of Warcasters. I think 16 is the number of us that are going to be at this. And it's basically using abilities and stuff in the game and reshuffling them around and making up some feats. And basically, at the beginning of it, all 16 people, they draw straws, and they draw lots, 1 to 16, and the first person gets to pick one of these 16 casters. You don't get to know anything about them, you just look at the model, and then you have to play the game. And when you play against someone, if they beat you, they can take your caster. So if you lose, you can take their caster and use it for the rest of the tournament. And then it's basically whoever gets the most wins throughout the day. Because there are going to be unbalances, and he knows that. But it's just a for funsies tournament. And I'll probably bring my video camera to that one for sure. But I told him that I would make up a model so that he could use one of them as one of the Warcasters. So this week, or next week, seeing as it's not until like mid-July, I will make one of those up. And I'll probably do a video while I'm making it or showing it. And I'm also going to be making a video on how to paint my dudes, because I kept getting asked about it when I was painting those Warriors of Chaos, how I paint my guys to paint them so quickly, and I'm going to do that. So there's going to be the little camera, and I'll actually show you what I'm doing in real time, because I realized I tried to time myself. I painted another guy the other day, and it took me about 20 minutes to paint a Warrior of Chaos model from black, like from base coat, or not base coat, from prime black to tabletop, not including basing. So, I don't know if that's faster for you. It was, of course, like me just trying it out with that guy. You could probably do it tougher or faster when you got used to it, but this was me also making up a paint scheme as I went along. So, we'll see. I'll make a video and post that. So those of you who don't like to paint, that are like me, and you just want to get your guys got color on them and off they go, then this might help you out. But for those of you who actually want to know how to paint and paint well, go over a couple of the pages that I've liked on this YouTube channel. Jay Did Painting, which I think is now Mini Wargaming Jay, Way of the Brush, Austin Paint Job. Those guys are all great painters, and they'll actually be able to teach you how to paint properly. Like Chris on Way of the Brush is a really good painter, so I can recommend them, and I will give them the plug for their channels, because I can do that. And it helps everybody out, right? Chaos Sheldon watched a video this week where a GW rep came to a store and asked what they could do to support the game. They asked for prize support for tournaments and got some. Maybe things are changing. Okay, prize support is good. It leads the inclination. But here's the downside of that. So let's say that GW is going to support the prizes for their tournaments. And they're going to be good prizes because GW's got the money that they can invest into these tournaments better than the stores do. So I'm going to go as GW. You get one, let's say, monster. You get an $80 model or $80 worth of models at a local game store for winning this tournament. What armies do you expect will be at that tournament? Remember, this is now a competitive setting because there is a monetary gain for winning. You're going to have Tau Eldar, Tau Eldar, Tau Eldar, Tau Eldar, Tau Eldar, Tau Eldar, Eldar. So the guys who don't play Tau and Eldar, they may come out because they'd like to have fun and play for the day, but they're not going to win. And eventually they're not going to come out because it's like, look, I like coming out for the game, but I just can't beat those friggin' Tau. I can't beat those Eldar jet bike spam. And that's a fundamental problem of the tournament. Like, you're less inclined to go and spend money to join simply because your faction will not win at a tournament. Or, of course, you can always win. I have to put that little asterisk. Every army can win a game. There's so many variabilities, but generally a few armies have it easier because they are more capable than others. End asterisks. But that's the thing. How about instead of doing prize support, how about you learn how to balance? How about you take cues from other games? Like, I had said this when they were talking about 7th edition, when it was first coming out, and I said, you know what you need to do to balance your game? You need to make a conscientious and consistent rule set. One that uses all of the same wording, like you don't switch between removed, destroyed, replaced, killed, slain. Like, use the same word for all of these, or use different ones if they mean different things. Like, because a model that is removed from play is not the same as a model that's destroyed. Like, they have different effects. Some stuff affects different things. And so, make those consistent, and make a very exact chart on how the turn goes. Like, literally, first you deploy reserves, then you move reserves in, then you do your buffs, then you do, like, that kind of thing, where there's no, like, in the beginning of the combat phase, okay, does your ability go first or my ability go first? roll a dice. Like, that's not an answer. That is you choosing not to make an answer for that ruling. So let's see that come out first before I argue that them making a bit of tournament support matters. Because to be fair, they probably do a lot of tournament support. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories where GW will step in and give money or models or stuff to smaller groups that are running tournaments in order to really help those guys out that are running these events. They usually do it anonymously, or not anonymously, but under the table. Like, they don't want everyone to know that GW is giving prize support. Because let's be honest, if GW had established that as a policy, every game club everywhere would be asking them for money, and basically you can't afford it, first off, and the second is that you'd have to figure out which ones are legitimate and which ones aren't, and like all the work involved in that. So it's easier just to do it quietly, and I can understand that. But just make your tournament scene worthwhile to go to, and then you don't even need to worry. They'll support themselves, because people will come out and play and pay the money, and they'll want to be in the tournaments. They'll want to go play competitively, instead of let's just play beer and pretzels, because the game's, we all accept that it's just a shitty competitive game. Best way to kill Wraith Knights and Riptides, Hellfire rounds from the Stern Guard. Always wound on a 2+. Yeah, if only Tau and Eldar had some way to kill Space Marines. Just gonna leave that right there. But anyway, it's over an hour now. The show goes on for an hour. We all accept that. Stay tuned. This Wednesday, of course, we have Gaming with the Cooler. Those of you who are interested in watching or playing, or interested at least in seeing what will be played, leave a comment on the other video, the Gaming with the Cooler from last week. It was the Sins of the Solar Empire Rebellion. And if you would like a different game played, leave a comment. If you'd like the same game played, leave a comment. Or thumbs up someone else who's already made a comment that you agree with. And then I'm going to go through them probably just a few minutes beforehand, and whichever ones were at the top, that's the game we're going to play. And so that's how that goes. This week, expect to get the painting video for how I paint my guys really quickly, along with maybe a live sit down at a random time, depends when I'm available, to start going through my bits buckets and trying to build some kind of character for War Machine. I'm thinking a Cav character. He's going to be mounted because I've got an extra 2 or 3 Dread Steeds from my Chaos Warriors army. So that's probably going to be how that's going to go down. And other than that, there'll be a battle report tomorrow. I'm going to be trying to do another teaching fantasy report with Sandy this time, and hopefully with Tim later this week. So lots of videos on the way, lots of stuff that I can try and get in. Those of you who are watching this in post, please like and subscribe the video. It does help me out, and thumbs up stuff. I know one of you out there is thumbs downing all my videos. I don't know who you are, but you amuse me. But it would be nice if you thumbed them up. Anyway, I don't care. Moving on from that, thank you for those of you who watched this all the way to the end. I see there's actually quite a few of you still here, and I'm glad you guys like to listen. Second audio. So, thank you. I'll see you all next week. If not then sooner. Have a good one.